Imagine waking up one morning to find that everything you worked for is just gone. Your life savings, your retirement money, the college fund for your children, all wiped out in a single heartbeat. You did not make a bad bet in the stock market. You did not spend foolishly on luxury items. You simply trusted a man who promised to keep your future safe. Instead, he completely stole your life. That man was Bernie Madoff. For decades, he was treated like an absolute king on Wall Street. People truly thought he had a magic touch with money. He was a wealthy, quiet man who wore very nice suits and always smiled with a gentle, grandfatherly warmth. When he spoke, powerful leaders and normal workers both leaned in to listen, but behind that warm smile hid the biggest financial lie in human history. The lie was a massive Ponzi scheme. In this kind of dangerous trap, no real business is happening at all. The trick is very simple, but deadly. The person running the scam takes money from new investors to pay off the older ones. It looks like everyone is making a steady profit, but the money is not actually growing. It is just being moved around in a giant, endless circle of theft. Word spread fast about the steady profits Madoff seemed to make year after year. Rich families, famous actors, and even huge global banks begged him to take their money. They wanted to feel special, to be part of a highly exclusive club. Madoff played hard to get. He would sometimes turn important people away. This only made them want to give him their cash even more. Pure greed blinded them to the danger. The big players in the financial world should have known much better. Other smart traders looked at Madoff's steady numbers and scratched their heads. Markets naturally go up and down, but Madoff only ever seemed to go up. It was mathematically impossible. Yet, the major banks kept sending him rich clients anyway. They were making way too much money in fees to ask hard questions. The whole system chose to look away. The watchdogs were completely asleep at the gate. The SEC is the government agency built to stop cheating in the markets. They visited Madoff several times over the years. They asked for records. They looked at his books. But they never dug deep enough to find the truth. They trusted his very good name instead of checking the hard facts. Their terrible failure to act gave the scam a powerful shield of official safety. Because the government seemed to trust him, normal people felt entirely safe. It was not just greedy billionaires who handed over their cash. Hardworking school teachers, plumbers, and firefighters gave him their pensions. Charities that helped sick children or fed the hungry trusted him with their vital funds. They believed their money was growing quietly, securing their future and helping the world. They had absolutely no idea it was already gone. The truth was hidden on the 17th floor of a famous building in New York. Madoff had a real working trading business on the 19th floor. It was loud, busy, and completely legal, but 2 floors down, in a locked room, a small group of workers ran the secret scam. They did not buy or sell a single stock. They just typed fake numbers into old computer systems day after day. Every single month, thousands of thick paper envelopes were mailed out to the investors. Inside were detailed statements showing exactly which stocks they supposedly owned. The papers looked incredibly official and real. They showed small, steady wins that made people smile. But every single trade listed on those pages was entirely made up. The workers simply looked at the past stock prices and pretended they had bought them at the perfect time. One man actually saw through the thick smoke. A math expert named Harry Markopoulos looked at the numbers and knew they were entirely fake. He realized it would take only 5 minutes of simple math to prove Madoff was a fraud. He warned the government over and over again. He sent them massive piles of hard proof. He told them it was a giant math impossible dream. But nobody listened to his warnings. The silence from the top allowed a dangerous network to grow very fast. Middlemen, known as feeder funds, popped up all around the world. These groups collected money from people in Europe, Asia, and South America, and funneled it straight to Madoff. The middlemen took huge cuts of the cash for themselves. They did not care how the magic worked, as long as they kept getting completely rich without doing any real work. The victims lived in a happy dream world for many years. They bought new homes, planned big weddings, and retired early, all based on the fake numbers printed on their monthly statements. The illusion was so strong that some people left their entire life savings in his hands for decades. The shadow of that early trust made the trap impossible to escape. They felt completely secure in his seemingly loving care. Then came the brutal shock of the 2008 financial crisis. The housing market crashed hard. Major banks started to fail. Deep panic swept through the entire world. Suddenly, people desperately needed cash. They were losing their jobs and their homes. Investors rushed to Madoff, asking to pull their money out of his fund so they could survive the terrible storm. It was a completely normal reaction to a terrible global event. But the storm finally exposed the hidden monster. In a normal fund, the manager simply sells the stocks and gives the money back to the people. But there were no stocks to sell. The only way to pay the terrified crowd was to find new people willing to put money in. In the dark days of that crash, no one had spare cash. The endless circle of theft finally hit a solid brick wall. The fake math of the scam totally collapsed. Madoff suddenly needed to pay out $7 billion to the panicked crowd. He only had a few $100 million left in the bank. The money was simply gone forever. It had been spent on huge mansions, luxury yachts, and paying off the early investors. The giant machine sputtered and died. The greatest illusion in market history was about to shatter into a million pieces. The crushing pressure finally broke the quiet man. In a small apartment, Madoff sat down with his two adult sons. They both worked for the real legal side of his business. He looked at them and confessed the dark secret he had hidden for decades. He told them the entire investment fund was just one big lie. He admitted that it was all a massive, fake scheme built on pure air. His sons were completely horrified by the truth. They immediately called the authorities to report their own father. The next morning, federal agents knocked on the heavy door of Madoff's luxury home. The man who had been treated like a king on Wall Street was taken away in tight handcuffs. The news flashed across television screens around the world. The untouchable wizard of money was nothing but a common thief in a very expensive suit. The shockwaves tore through the global economy in an instant. People could not believe that one single person could steal so much right under the nose of the government. The markets were already bleeding from the housing crash, and now public trust was completely broken. If a famous, respected leader could run a fake business for 30 years, who could anyone trust? The very foundation of the financial world shook with deep fear. Then came the agonizing realization for the innocent victims. They checked the news, hoping it was just a bad mistake. But the terrible truth set in. The $64.8 billion they thought they had was a total ghost. Thousands of families lost their family homes. Elderly people who had been retired for years suddenly had to find jobs wiping tables or bagging groceries. Their peaceful golden years turned into waking, endless nightmares. The human cost was far deeper than just empty bank accounts. The quiet desperation of the victims turned into pure, dark tragedy. Many marriages fell apart under the crushing weight of the terrible stress. Some investors, feeling they had ruined their families forever, took their own lives. Even one of Madoff's own sons could not live with the heavy shame and ended his life. The trail of destruction was completely devastating to see. The justice system moved fast to crush the man who caused so much pain. Madoff stood in a quiet courtroom and pleaded guilty to all charges. There was no long trial, just a cold, flat admission of guilt. The judge looked at the ruined lives and handed down a massive sentence of 150 years in prison. It was a very clear message. The punishment was designed to make sure he died behind bars. A massive hunt began to find any missing cash for the victims. Lawyers acting for the broken families dug through bank records all over the globe. They sued the rich middlemen who had profited from the dirty scam. They sold off Madoff's boats, his homes, and even his shiny watches. Year after year, they managed to claw back billions of dollars. But it was still only a fraction of what was actually stolen. The terrible failure of the watchdogs forced a massive change in the rules. The SEC had to completely rebuild how it looked at bad behavior. They started taking whistleblowers very seriously. They hired smarter experts to look at the complex math. The government realized that they could not just trust people because they wore nice suits and had famous friends. The old rules of the rich club were burned to the ground, yet the shadow of that early ambition still shaped the rules of the entire game. Even with new laws in place, the danger of blind trust remains very real. The markets are always creating new ways to hide the ugly truth. The story serves as a dark mirror for the entire financial world. It shows exactly what happens when people stop asking questions and let the promise of easy wealth cloud their clear judgment. The name Bernie Madoff will always mean pure betrayal. His life of lies proved that the most dangerous weapons on Wall Street are not complex computers or fast trades. The most dangerous weapon is a simple, trusted smile. The billions of dollars lost can never fully be replaced by any court. The deep scars left on the hearts of thousands will forever stand as the ultimate cost of unchecked greed and broken trust.